Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to the August edition of Molten Music Monthly. It's the end of the summer we got here, and hopefully not too many of us melted into non-existence. It's been a hot one, a dry one with fierce wildfires, but it's also thrown up a couple of little bits of gear for us to look at. Not a whole lot though, because I've been on holiday, I've been away, been looking after kids and dogs and generally shuffling around this mortal coil in my shorts, looking for patches of water to jump into. So I haven't had all the time I normally would to focus on what it is that's extraordinary in music technology at this time. However, I've got a handful of stuff. I've got 10 things to tell you about, which I think will probably be enough. And the rate with which I babble and ramble on about stuff, I don't imagine that this is going to be any shorter than any of the other ones that I do, where I cram in 20 products. So, with no further ado, here's 10 things that I found particularly fascinating this month. Kicking us off, we have 4 new modules from Tenderfoot Electronics. Now, Tenderfoot is out in Taiwan. It's run by a guy called Peter, who I had a lovely conversation with back when I was doing my COVID Molten chat. So we talked about how he got into modular and what his intentions were and all the sorts of things that he's been doing. And I've had a number of his modules over the years, many of which continue to be very useful and knock around. Particularly I like the lattice sequencer. I also like the 4-channel quantizer, which is great because you set sort of like an overall quantization and then you have 4 lots of stuff going through it, which makes it a stunningly useful module for an entire rig. But that's in the past. Now we have some new stuff. It comes along perhaps with a new intention, a new level of weirdness, and certainly a very interesting and vibey new look. We have the Chronicle, a matrix style 8-step sequencer. We have the Tetrad, which is a 4 oscillator harmonic voice. We have the Combin, I think, 8-channel mixer, and then we have Morse. What? What is this thing? Now this is fascinating. Morse is essentially a Morse key thing, for sending Morse code. It really is what it says on the tin. It's a Morse code generator. And I'm scratching my head thinking, what possible use is this in Eurorack other than being, look, I'm doing that Morse code. Well, I think perhaps that's the major part of it, is that it brings Morse code, which is a rhythm-based, pulse-based generator of more than just beeps and boops. It's beeps and boops that hide or culminate together to create meaning, deep meaning, words, descriptions. It can mean anything you like. You can describe the entire works of Shakespeare in Morse code if you wish. And that's kind of got me thinking about it quite a lot. I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay. So you can tap out different rhythms. You can create gates with this thing. Or you can just put those pulses through as if you're writing a new theme tune, perhaps, for the reimagining of Inspector Morse on the telly. Who knows? But the point being, is there a point that you are tapping away at this thing in order to send Morse code? Now that Morse code can go out as gates through your system. It can go out as pulses. You can change the pitch of that. You even change the waveform that it's generating. But perhaps the most interesting thing is that it has this Wi-Fi engine inside, so it can connect itself to the internet and broadcast your Morse code ramblings out into the world. Potentially, someone on the other side of the world with one of these Morse modules could receive that and have it play things in their modular. So in a kind of a roundabout, ancient vintage communication kind of way, Tenderfoot have brought in this ability to connect 2 modulars together across the cosmos and fire off triggers and gates into the other system. How fascinating. What's also fascinating is it has a little screen which tells you what it is that you're writing. And luckily, it also down the side has a key to what all these things are. So if you've never done Morse before, you can at least have some idea as to what on earth it is you're supposed to be doing. It's a bizarre idea, but fascinating all the same, and just makes you start thinking about all sorts of things. But I love the way that it could connect up. So you could potentially run one modular from another. You can also store messages and fire them off. So you could write a song, in words, stick it into the app will fire it across via Wi-Fi into the Morse code generator, and when it will play it out, it will sing it for you in Morse, if you like. Which is fascinating. Fascinating again. It's really, really, I think, extraordinarily, microscopically niche. But it's I'm quite fascinated by it, and wonder how useful, could we make it useful? How useful is that? I mean, I like the way you could generate phrases, and you're essentially sending them in secret because nobody understands Morse code anymore. So you could be, running an entire revolution through this module, and no one will be none the wiser, except for those people with a modular system and this module. Anyway, the other modules, like the Chronicle, for instance, is extraordinary. I mean, it's a proper matrix-sized sequencer. It is covered in possibilities and functions and parameters. There's all sorts of shift functions going on with which you can stuff stuff about. It's very reminiscent of the circadian rhythms from Tip Top, but this is CV and gate. So we can do all the sequencing. Also in the video I was noticing he was playing half of it, so you can use it to generate notes in a kind of an isomorphic kind of way. Also, great stuff. Fabulously interesting stuff. And then the 4-voice thing. Not 4 voices, 4 notes. I don't know what it is. What it has is 4 oscillators, and you can tune those differently and approach those differently, so you can create chords, harmonic intervals, harmonic changes, all of it mixed out of a single output and addressed singularly. So you're not trying to run 4 voices of polyphony as such, you're just creating these relationships between the oscillators, and that could be very, very interesting. The mixer, perhaps a mixer, yeah, we understand that, not too bad. 2 buses going out and back again. Simple, straightforward, probably useful in lots of different ways. But it's great to see Tenderfoot still out there doing interesting and new stuff, and I wish Peter all the best with it. Bitwig is undoubtedly my favourite DAW. It's not the DAW I spend all my time in because I have reasons for using Studio One, don't you know? But when I'm not using Studio One, Bitwig is what I always come back to, and certainly if I'm doing stuff over in this corner with modular, Bitwig is my go-to DAW. They've just reached version 6. Now, whenever a new version comes along, I'm always trying to pull out exactly what it is that makes this one interesting. Why was this worth an entire version update as opposed to just an incremental one? It must be extraordinary. It must be phenomenal. And almost without fail, I'm largely disappointed. And this is no exception. No, not really. What is it then? What is going on here? Because there isn't, on the surface, a whole lot of new content. It's not like there's a massive big new synth or a new page or a way of looking at things, a new fundamental difference. So, should we be impressed with this new version? Well, I think perhaps we should. Because Bitwig has never been terribly intuitive. Its workflow has been interesting, quirky, different. Its visualization of stuff has been exciting, again, different, sort of edgy, colourful, creative, but not always as intuitive or as smooth as you'd like it to be. What Bitwig seem to have done, at least as far as I can understand it so far, is they've really worked to completely smooth out the underlying workflow. So this means removing some of the graphical restraints, because it has been very fixed in the way that you can see things, and only very slowly over time have you been allowed to change the size of things or to alter stuff and see things differently. Now that seems to be released into a much more fluid view and visualization of things. The way it looks now is totally extraordinary, and you can now zoom in and go all over the place to really get into what it is that's going on. So as a whole, the whole thing's been recooked, if you like, rejigged, just to give it a sense that it's really starting to flow from one thing to another in an easy sense. And one of those things where that really works is through the editors. There seems to be some kind of clever way of it thoroughly understanding what it is you're trying to edit and throwing up the appropriate page to do that. But it will also layer up edits for you. It will focus down. It will change colour schemes depending on which tool you've got and what it is that you're trying to do. They have bent in as many flipping curves to the automation track and expression editing as you could possibly imagine. You can now probably define to the smallest degree exactly how you wish things to move and flow about within your project. But probably the more interesting thing within the automation is that they've introduced the automation clip. Now, if you're not all that familiar with Bitwig, it has two views. Well, many DAWs do now, in fact. Bitwig was probably the first to do this, or did Ableton Live do it first? Well, no, one or the other. But you've got these two views. You've got your regular DAW track timeline view, and then you've got your clip launcher view. Now, what they've done in the clip side of things, although this populates on both sides, because one of the beauties of Bitwig Studio is its way to translate from clip launcher to timeline completely seamlessly, on the fly, as it were. Brilliantly done. Everybody else has copied it since, I think. Anyway, back to what I'm talking about. You've now got these automation clips, and they work kind of in the same way. So in the clip launcher, you drop in a sample and it would play. Drop in another sample, it would play. Add some plugins, add some bits and pieces, and it plays. Do the same with MIDI. A MIDI clip, drop it in, it plays an instrument. Automation clips, you can throw those in, you can attach them to parameters, and it brings a fireable, selectable automation clip to control parameters for that track. So you got your sample, you got an effect, you drop on an automation clip and it plays with that effect. Within Bitwig you've got an entire library of different curves and wobbles that you can pull in and throw those at parameters. And you can have a whole stack of these underneath a single clip and launch them like you would the clip itself. So you can have the same clip running, and rather than having to create multiple scenes for that and have different automations for each of them, you can have one clip, one scene, different automation choices. So you can completely radicalize what it is that it's playing without actually having to create new tracks or create new scenes or duplicate bits and pieces. Really, really interesting. I'm trying to think whether this has happened before. Has anyone done it like this before? I'm not sure. I mean, this also works in the timeline where you can sort of copy and paste automation about the place and loop it and things like that, which I think you might have seen in other DAWs. But it's very, very nice, very, very seamless, and of course pushes you into doing interesting and different things with the synths and effects that you've got plugged in there. Also, back to the editors for a moment, there's a couple of new tools in there that you could use, very much about the expression of things and adding notes. There's a spray can idea where you can paint notes about the place in streams as opposed to individually. I mean, I think if, like me, you tend to use or dip into different DAWs, you kind of forget exactly what stage everything is at, so you tend to think that everything can do everything, and that's not always the case. And so in some cases Bitwig is sort of catching up with others, but very much in others it's pushing out the envelopes and being very innovative, and that's great. I mean, it just looks like it just keeps on getting better and better, and I hope at some point to crowbar it into my schedule to see if I can do a proper review of it. I think that would be fun. Now, I've always been surprised that mixing isn't easier, that we haven't kind of cracked it by now. That you would have thought we would have come up with a system by which, you know, we all know what sounds good. And surely I can just put some tracks into something and go, oh yeah, off you go, and it will come out nicely sounding the other end. But no, apparently not. We all forever, or I seem to be forever, dropping on plugins and then going through the presets going, oh, that sounds terrible. Oh no, it's far too much. What on earth were they thinking? You know, and these are presets presumably put together by someone who's supposed to know what they're doing. But they don't have any idea what my audio is like. You know, that's for certain. So what am I talking about? Am I talking about AI? No, absolutely not. I am not in any way talking about AI. I am talking about Tim Exile and his latest bit of weird wizardry. Now, this is a system, currently doesn't have a name. He's looking for a name for this thing. but it's currently in development. And what it is, right, is that you take your stems, everything stems these days. Got to take your stems, not your individual tracks. No, that'd be crazy. No, you take your stems. Although apparently this will support up to 32 stems, which sounds a lot like 32 tracks of audio to me. I mean, if I can come up with more than 32 tracks of audio, then, you know, someone should probably shoot me. But anyway, so you take your stems, are you with me? Drop them into this piece of software and it will look at them, you categorize them, tell it what it is, it will analyze it, and it will go, bosh, here you go, here's a fantastic mix. And you go, oh, thanks very much, I'm going to go and get that stuck onto vinyl somewhere. That is a general idea, really, of this piece of software, but it has all these different presets, it has these different ideas, soft ones, hard ones, neutral ones, aggressive ones, and you hit on a thing and it rejigs and changes how the whole thing sounds. I mean, I guess largely what we're looking at is dynamics processing. You're looking at multi-band compression, side chaining, bit of saturation, that kind of thing. Those are the sort of things that are being played with here. But I mean, I've been playing with it a little bit today, and it does give quite remarkable different vibes to what it is that you're doing. It throws a different idea up. It really sort of pulls things apart and pushes different things to the front and the back. You know, quite an interesting way. So maybe this is the answer to the automatic mixing that's put together by people wanting to do it using their experience, and you have control over levels and gain and how much this is happening. You're not just giving it over to AI to say, hey, make this sound like a Taylor Swift record. No, you're using your own judgment and working with your own sound, but in a way that's actually potentially very useful and time-saving and fabulous, you know, which is what Tim Exile is all about, really, being fabulous. And this certainly ticks those boxes. Tim says it should be releasing in October, very soon, probably a Kickstarter of some such, and he hopes to have a name by then, I think. But you can pre-order it now, which gets you in on a bit of an early bird pricing if you head over to the website. Another remarkable device from Instruo. Whatever happened to their modular department? You know, we're going to be wondering about this in the years to come as they produce increasingly eccentric and esoteric instruments and weirdness around us. This one is the Pocket SCION. I don't know how they're pronouncing it. It is a biosophonication, biometric feedback data, clip it to your mushroom, attach it to your house plant, suck voltage out of organic materials type machine. But this one goes in your pocket. They did have the SCION previously, which is a lovely looking module that sits there and sort of grows a tree as it absorbs the voltages that playfully drip from the underside of leaves, which then let you throw that and infect your modular with those sorts of thoughts and feelings. But this is built into a handheld little gorgeous little thing with this wonderful sort of Mandela-like flower on the front and a touch plate to let you interact with it. And you can interact it in different ways. You can touch it just there. You can connect clips, crocodile clips to plant. Crocodile clips probably need to be something less aggressive than a crocodile clip, I would say, because you are starting to get into vegetation abuse with those crocodiles there. Anyway, worth a thought. Anyway, you can also run audio into it, and that will trigger the engine inside, because inside it has 4 curated instruments which give you, if you like, 4 styles, 4 environments, 4 soundscapes that the information coming off the plants can manipulate and change and revolve around and stuff. Alright, I like this sort of thing, I really do. It reminds me a whole lot of the Plant Wave, which is, you know, a similar box that has an app that you plug into a plant that then takes that information and plays you beautiful music. And now that is where this starts to get a little bit kind of, for me at least, because with the original coding behind it called MIDI Sprout, which was the basis of the SCION as it is the base of the Plant Wave and other such devices, is that it takes the electrical charges, that changing capacitance or resistance from the biometric material, and converts that into a voltage which is somehow useful within a Eurorack context, or in a modular context, or in a musical context. The question then comes is, what do you do with that information? Because is it actually usable? Because we talk a lot about hearing mushrooms sing, or hearing the plants and the trees. Going back to the 70s with the avant-garde movement and things like green music and installations about the secret life of plants and all this kind of stuff, they were absorbing this data, but then using it in a way that created these extraordinary, weird and sort of untamed soundscapes. Now, as we bring this all the way through MIDI Sprout and into the plant wave, what they tended to do is clamp down so severely that you really don't have any sense of what it is the plant is producing at all. It's so quantized, so commodified, that essentially it makes it sound like plants have some kind of inherent pentatonic scale, that they are drenched in reverb at all times, and that they have delays and these weird reverses that go on. And that is just how plants sound, when that is it's simply not the case. But I guess that when you're capturing biometric data or feedback data, you need to do something useful with it. And so inevitably there's some kind of negotiation going on. Inevitably there's some kind of interpretation or curation going on, in that you're trying to direct these changes in voltage, these differences and these meanderings into some kind of form that's actually going to be helpful. And so Plant Wave did that to the nth degree, which annoys me slightly. Because it seems these wonderful soundscapes that you hear seem so divorced from the actual plant that you're plugged into. However, with the Pocket SCION, what they seem to be doing is that they're doing some of that. So you've got these 4 instruments, and they do respond in these sorts of ways, pentatonically, diatonically. You've got these movements and stuff that are being shifted by the plants. So it's not the plants that you're hearing the effect on a musical instrument that the plants are having. Does that make a little bit more sense? I mean, actually, Divkid and Jason went into a great detail on this in the Instruo videos, talking about this very thing, about what actually is it that we're hearing. Are we hearing the plants? Are we hearing the result of someone's interpretation of those plants upon a musical instrument? And those are really interesting questions to ponder. But what's perhaps important with the Pocket SCION is that it has the ability to output just the raw data. So you can take exactly what it is the plant is saying, which is just, pulses and changes and pitches. You can take that and use that directly, or you can chip away at it and craft the sort of level of interaction that you want from it, and then see if you can use that data in a useful way. I'm sorry if that's a bit babbly about all this. I do find it fascinating, and I feel that something is greatly lost when we interpret the biometric data too deeply and too intentionally. I think there needs to be the chaos and the strangeness that's inherent within these voltages, and that needs to flourish a little bit more. However, I've not had a go on the Pocket SCION. I'd love to see exactly how that works, and am I talking, and whether I'm actually talking any kind of nonsense at all, which is probably very likely. Oddly, it doesn't have any CV outputs. This is a standalone device. It runs on a few batteries. You plug it into things, but alongside using the internal instruments, it will also generate MIDI and OSC, which you can use in all sorts of other ways. So, fascinatingly interesting. Certainly something to get your mind working and to chew on and to think on, and how is this working? How am I interacting with this? And how useful is it? Or is it an ambient box that's essentially like a Buddha machine, but one that's sort of self-generating? Or is it the interpretation of the natural world? Is it not? These are the questions that we all ponder. I'm sure you're pondering them now. I'm always looking for another way to get music out there, this music that I failed to produce all the time. If I can get Tim Exile's thingy-majig working, maybe I'll get some tracks finished. Yeah, maybe if I can actually record my stuff through another module I'm going to talk about in a minute, that and then take those and then stick it into Tim's thing and then take that and then stick it into this. I should have done these in a different order. Anyway, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Faircamp. Right, back to the beginning of this. So, I'm always looking for a new way to put music out there. And it can be difficult. If you ever built a website that you want to stick music on, trying to embed stuff properly into a web page is remarkably difficult. And formats keep changing and things disappear and some things work and some things don't. On some platforms and other ones it never looks very good. It's always just a bit kind of Heath Robinson and crappy. So we kind of get around that by sticking all our music on Spotify and then putting in the embedded player or Bandcamp and try to do something similar. But what about if you don't want to deal with all of those weirdos over at Spotify and such like? Maybe you want to just do it yourself. Maybe you just want your music on your page and your page alone. Well, this Faircamp could well be the answer. It is an open source thing which takes a folder of your audio and generates a web page to embed it beautifully in a very much a Bandcamp sort of style, I suppose. It requires a little bit of website sort of know-how, I suppose, and you download this thing, this Faircamp app, that's not actually an app. You have to run it via command line. So you command line a bunch of stuff, run this thing, point it at a folder or something, and other bits of artwork to create a theme, and it goes digga 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 and produces a bunch of website files. You then have to upload those to your website, into your web space, in order to publish it, and it becomes then a static web page on which you've got it fabulously themed album covers, a wonderful embedded audio file look thing, the ability for people to download or potentially even to buy the stuff. It's just beautifully presented, and it makes me quite excited about the idea that I could actually put together a static web page with my music on that actually looks great and that I'm fully and completely in charge of. That would be very interesting. It would also be interesting to create a page that other people could put stuff on so that I could showcase perhaps other people's music. I've talked about the potential of doing a radio show or doing a YouTube thing where I'm playing other people's music. Maybe this is the way to do it. People could send me their stuff in, I could stick it on, and there you go. This is all assuming that I have a website that thousands and thousands of people like to browse by. But you never know, do you? You never know. It could be a thing. So I'm going to try to do this, I think. I'm going to add it to my massive to-do list and see whether I can put a video together of me fumbling around trying to put this thing together in order to show you how easy or hard that may be. But it's a potentially awesome thing. It's all open source. It's all free. It's all potentially interesting. So yeah, that's Faircamp. Go and check out the link below in the description and it will take you to the page that will tell you all about it. CubuSynth Arkarion. This is an extraordinary looking thing. Colourful, I like that. Great big flower over here that you see me go dialing in over here. What could that possibly mean? Well, apparently it's something to do with DNA sequencing, something to do with gene combinations and such like. So what is this? Well, it's a 2-oscillator analog synthesizer voice, but one which has this layer of digital routing and connection behind the scenes, which can be essentially randomized. Now, not randomized in a bad way, because, I mean, I don't know about you, but on a lot of either synths or software synths in particular, when they have a random button, you press it and you get rubbish. Endless rubbish. And it's like, why did I even bother? But looking at the video on this, that doesn't seem to be the case. This seems to be far more together. I think you can use those trimmer knobs to decide exactly how wacky and wild the randomization of the connections and the amounts of how all the bits and pieces are sort of thrown together. So from what I can see is that you have a really nice sound going through and you're playing that and you can hit a button and it will leap to something similar but different. And every time it's sort of sounding quite nice. Now with that dial you can then change aspects. It's like a macro knob, I suppose, changing aspects within that particular patch, or you can use it to leap to an entirely new one. And then once you've got something that you like, you can save it and then swap between up to 64 different patches. You can send it a gate to change patches. You can send it a gate to re-randomize. So ultimately you've got this analog synthesizer with all the usual stuff, you know, envelopes, LFOs, VCAs, filters, oscillators, waveforms and stuff. You've got all of that going on, but one that you can just spin into a new sound, into a new sound, into a new sound constantly. And that's really quite interesting. Don't have to patch anything at all, though it does have further modulation inputs that you could use and outputs of all sorts of bits and pieces. But you can just kind of let it fly for constantly evolving and changing bass lines or lead lines, or just something different every time you pick it up. Really, really, really fascinating. Okay, I alluded to this earlier. This is the ALM Stem Ripper. Oh, it's just begun to rain, so we're going to enjoy a little bit of organic rain song during the rest of this video. I imagine we're going to crack on. So this is the Stem Ripper. What is this? It's an 8-channel recorder. I don't understand why recording isn't more of a thing within Eurorack. I would have thought that every output module should essentially have, you know, a little SD card in the side for recording a mix from what you're doing. Surely, shouldn't it? I mean, it seems like an obvious thing to have a module, plug in, recording. I understand there's a disting algorithm which does that, but, you know, we just want something a little bit more built for that purpose. So, the ALM Stem Ripper could be such a device. This is 8 channels of recording, straight to an SD card, on a little module, whack it in your system, plug everything into it, and you've got 8 channels of recording. Awesome. You could see that as stems, because stems are... We are losing clear definitions between what a track is and what a stem is. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. It just gives me something to chew and complain about. Anyway, so you have this module, you've got 8 channels, and you can record directly in it. Exactly how you integrate that into your rack is a whole different matter. I mean, you're going to have to sort of molt off channels somewhere, somehow taken out in order to plug it into a thing. And is that before or after a fader? Is that before or after effects? These are questions. Now, ALM have answered one of these questions by also producing a companion module, which is a little 2HP one which has 8 through outputs. So that way you can drop the Stem Ripper in the middle of your patching and route through it. Now that makes a lot more sense to me. Not having the outputs to me seems, you know, ridiculous. So you have to have that output module, I think, at least in my view of it. So that way you just plop it in and you're just breaking a cable on your way to your mixer or whatever, so that you can pull off these multi-track recordings, dump it into your DAW, mix it, affect it, so on and so forth. Exactly how you work it around your system, whether you have effects in or not, I mean, that is, I guess, is an adventure that you have to explore on your own terms. The other thing is that it could also just be stereo. I mean, you've got 8 channels there. You don't have to use all 8. You could just have it going from your stereo output. I think that's phenomenally useful, and I can't believe you don't have more of these sorts of things within your rack as a matter of course. Sorry about the rain. It's one of those things where you say, well, I could sit here and just wait, but, you know, I've really got to get this done, and so... What can I do, hey? What can I do? But hey, we're not far away. What are we on to now? The Bad Dog Designs Osprey-8. Now this is rather lovely looking, sort of sit up, slightly laid back, sit up drum sound source. 8 modules, if you like, of analog drum sounds in a single beautifully made little box. It's kind of an instrument. It's sort of modular and yet not modular, in that you don't have to have anything to do with modular in order to use it. It can just be a sound source that you can tweak straight on the front panel. It has MIDI, it has a mixed audio output, but you do also have individual triggers on each of the modules and individual outputs. You get 4 percussion modules. These could be kicks, snares, toms, that kind of thing. Each are identical with controls over decay, bend, pitch, tone, those sorts of things. You've then got 3 cymbals, so you can have your clangy cymbal and your crash, your terrible crash clang thing, possibly even a cowbell, who knows, and possibly some hi-hats. So they've got a little bit more pitch and noise or information going on. And then lastly, you've got a hand clap all by itself, because hand claps are awesome after all. And all of these, as I say, are wired together themselves internally, or you can take things out individually and play with them that way. It's just a solid, usable, hands-on, quite exciting analog source of drum sounds. They're all handmade over at Bad Dog Designs, and they have like 1 or 2 available for sale if you like, but they're also planning on doing a Kickstarter relatively soon in order to get production up and running a bit more and to take some orders to get it really going. But it sounds fantastic, it looks really, really great, and so I wish them all the best. Elektor Synths have re-released or refound or dug up a bunch of old magazines under the stairs somewhere, found them up in the attic from the 1970s. called Elektor magazine, and within there many years ago was the designs for a modular style synthesizer called the Elektor Formant DIY synthesizer. It had all the schematics inside, and the idea was that you're supposed to put it together yourself. Elektor Synths have dusted this all off and put it together as an enormous kit. There's like 27 modules in this thing. I mean, it looks phenomenal. You've got like really tall modules at the bottom, shorter ones at the top. It uses this format that no one can remember. But that's fine. That's fine. This is very much a standalone, exciting project for someone. So within the 27 modules, you've got 3 oscillators, I think, 2 filters, a Formant filter. You've got envelopes, VCAs, LFOs, and all sorts of stuff. You can wire it together behind the front panel so that you don't actually have to patch it at all, or you can just patch it like you normally would, or a bit of both. I mean, it's entirely up to you. It's your DIY kit at the end of the day. Elektor Synth says that you do need a bit of experience for building this thing. It's not really for newbies, although it is designed to be relatively straightforward, but you will need calibration tools and a little bit of experience in how these sorts of things go together. Sam from Look Mum No Computer did a 24-hour build of this thing, which was quite fascinating to watch. A lot of fun, and not entirely successful, I have to say. So bear that in mind, I think, when taking on a project this big. It's about 3,000 quid, I think, for the kit, but at the end of the day, you get quite an extraordinary piece of hardware. Right, and finally, Synth Picnic. What does that mean to you? Well, it's going to mean exciting things from here on in. Now, I've been talking about this quite a bit, I think, but I'm starting to pull all the details together now, like deciding to call it Synth Picnic rather than anything to do with Synth East, and turning it into very much its own thing, and my thing, I guess. What am I talking about? Well, we have a problem at the moment in music retail. Music shops, they are collapsing around us. It's very hard to run a music shop these days, particularly a high-tech one, because all of the electronics and electronic stuff is so easily available online. Buying a guitar can be a different experience. You kind of feel you need to pick it up and feel it and play the strings and that kind of thing. So I think guitar shops are more likely to stay around. Synthesizer shops, much more difficult. In fact, at the moment, as far as I'm aware, there's nowhere in the whole of East Anglia where you could try out a synthesizer. And that's nuts. We are in danger of losing entire generations of would-be synth nerds or electronic musicians simply because they just don't get the opportunity to come into contact. If you're anything like me, then your interest and fascination in synthesizers would have been fueled by dropping into that music shop and playing on things you can't possibly afford or understand. And that element is lost. It's not the same to look at a YouTube review, to then order it off Amazon or order it from Gear for Music or Perfect Circuit or anywhere like that. It's not the same experience. And while buying gear that way is fine for people who are already in it, it's very, very difficult to get people enthusiastic about a product that they've never had in their hands, you know. Now, we have synthesizer shows, and those are fantastic, but they also tend to be annual, they tend to be ticketed, and also tend to be attended by enthusiasts who already are caught, who are already on the hook. So how do we get synthesizers into the hands of regular people casually, you know, on an afternoon, in a lunch hour, without actually building more music shops, which doesn't seem to be working anymore? You have a synth picnic. That's what you do. What do I possibly mean? Right, so this is it, right? This is it. I will be doing a video all about it soon, very soon, because my first one, I've booked it now for the 10th of October. 10th of October in the Honesty Library in the Castle Quarter in Norwich. That's a bit of a mouthful, I know. It's going to be amazing. It's not a synthesizer show. What it is a pop-up synth demonstration day / shop. Bear with me now. So the idea is I've taken over this space. I'm going to fill it full of a bunch of synths over here, synths over there, synths over there, modular, and people can just walk in and play. That is it. The hope is that I'll partner up with, you know, a small retailer somewhere else in the country, because we don't have any down our way, who can deliver the synthesizer you want to your door a day or two later. So you come in, you play on a little thing, go, wow, that's amazing, can I have one of those? And you go, absolutely, just scan the QR code, takes you to the website, order the thing, turns up a couple of days. Bosh, that is perhaps the new model for how we do synthesizer retail. Maybe. It might not work. It might be rubbish, but I have every hope that this could perhaps be something that could be fascinating or interesting for the synth community in Norwich and for people who are curious about synthesizers. So the Synth Picnic idea is that once a month I'll turn up in Norwich, load of stuff, have it open to everybody, be able to answer questions, show people how it works, make some music, meet some people, and with a little bit of luck inspire them creatively, inspire them into the idea that synthesizers could be for them, and potentially earn a little bit of money in selling synths. Is that possible? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't require stock, it doesn't require having bricks and mortar, it doesn't require having a staff, particularly. I mean, I might take my kids along and pay them $5, you know, that kind of thing. It might require more than that, but it's the enormity of having a music shop that's part of the problem, and what all of that entails. Whereas this is quick, easy, lightweight. It just requires a bunch of work for me to drag a bunch of gear from my car into a place, set it up and take it down again. But I'm prepared to do that because I think it's exciting, and I think having synthesizers available in a community is important. It's important to inspire the next generation of would-be synthesizer type people. So that's a plan. That's a plan. I'm also going to try to fold into this some idea of rentals as well, to be able to rent out modular systems to people who would like to try it out for a month. That is kind of a separate idea, but is potentially the one that will actually fund the whole thing happening with a bit of luck. But I'm still trying to work that out. I don't think that will be available on the first day, but it will be an opportunity to gauge interest and possibility with that. The first time, it's just going to be everything out on the table. Come and have a go and have a play, and we'll see where that takes us. It's just for a few hours on a Saturday in Norwich. Hey, exciting, eh? So yeah, so I'm going to be probably completely preoccupied with that, I imagine, until it happens, and then forever. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a grand idea, I think. But do look out for my video on this, which I'll be putting out over the next couple of weeks, I should think, as I pull it together along with the list of things that people are going to be able to play on and how that is all going to work. Synth Picnic. Oh, I should also say that the website is just coming together, and so is a Facebook page and other bits and pieces like that. And I've had some fabulous artwork done by Steve Holmes, which is just amazing. And I think you can even go and buy the t-shirt right now. Right, that'll do. I think that'll do for now. Not as much as what I would normally like to pack into a thing. So I imagine if you're a little company who've released a bunch of modular over the last few weeks that I've missed, I'm sorry about that, but do get in touch. Do give us a shout. Let me know about it. I'm always happy to hear about stuff. The more I hear about it, the more likely it is that I'll be able to mention it, because I'm only one person here, and trying to trawl through the internet to find every release is a little bit time consuming. But hopefully next month I'll be back onto a fuller, greater thing. Incidentally, if you'd like to sponsor this video, you can. I can talk about you right at the front of the video, which is where I put the sponsorship type thing. Do give us a shout. You know, I charge like £100 and you can throw yourself on the front of my video and I can tell the world all about you and your stuff. So if that interests you, get in touch. Now, reviews that are coming up. The Caress of Stars. Coming very soon. What a beautiful, beautiful, crazy thing. Can't wait to get that plugged in. Just haven't had time, sadly. The AJH Matrix filter. What on earth would you want all of those filter modes? I have no idea, but I'm happy to look into it. I've got the Stylophone Gen 2X turning up, I think, sometime this afternoon, which is quite exciting. I'm really looking forward to trying that out. I've got the Own Force Bomb in here that I'm trying to work out why on earth I need quite so many controls just for a single kick drum. I've got the Bishop's Miscellany 2 here from Shackmat, which I've avoided reviewing because the firmware wasn't quite up to scratch. Now it is. I'm going to try to get in to get that done. I've also got the Arcania Loki here, which I keep meaning to get around to review, and it's there looking at me all the time, trying to get that sorted out. I've got a bunch of stands from Loki, have just come in from Steve Holmes again, which are fantastic. I'm going to be setting those up. I'll probably do a video on that, I think, as I set them up, because those are interesting. I've got a whole bunch of DIY to do, a whole load of other modules I haven't even spoken about, and it's Bristronica at the end of September as well, so I will absolutely and most definitely be there for the entire thing. Last year I was going to be there, and the day before I had this massive tooth problem that meant I had to miss it. This year I'm booked in, going to be there the entire weekend, so that's very exciting. And shall we have a live stream this Sunday? I think we should. So Sunday night, that is it the 30th? I don't know, whatever it is Sunday night is, then we'll have a live stream 8 o'clock, and we can plug a few of these things in, see what they're about, have a bit of a chinwag about stuff, and generally have a lovely time with beer and wine and modular and electrons, and we can talk about anything you wish. So that'll do it. That's the summer. That's August. So we're heading into a new school term. Lots of changes, lots of things going on. Busy, busy, busy. Flipping Synth Picnic coming up before you know it. Oh my goodness. Where's it all going to end? I don't know. So I hope that was helpful. In the meantime, go make some tunes.